My husband, Dante, laughed in my face as he lay in our custom silk sheets with his arm draped around my own sister, Ebony. He looked me dead in the eye and asked what I was going to do about it. Divorce him. He smirked and told me I did not have the money to hire a lawyer. He told me that every asset we had was tied up in his company and that I would leave this marriage with absolutely nothing but the clothes on my back. I did not scream. I did not cry. I simply turned around and walked to the wall safe. They laughed harder when they saw me packing. They thought I was grabbing cheap jewelry. They had no idea I was actually retrieving a small red USB drive that contained the $50 million secret that would turn their entire world to ash. Before I tell you how I brought down a sports empire and my toxic family without saying a single word, please let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever had to play the long game to get the justice you deserve. My name is Zola, and I am 34 years old. To the outside world and specifically to my family, I am just a boring mid-level accountant who pushes paper for a living. They think I dress in black because I have no fashion sense. They think I work long hours because I am slow. What they do not know is that I am a forensic accountant and a ghost CFO for some of the wealthiest families in Chicago. I do not just count money, I hide it, I find it, and I control it. My fee starts at $500 an hour, but to my husband Dante and my sister Ebony, I am just the dry ATM machine that keeps their lavish lifestyles afloat. Dante is a sports agent, or at least that is what his Instagram bio says. He is handsome, charismatic, and loves the sound of his own voice. He spends his days chasing NFL rookies, and his nights popping bottles at clubs in River North. He loves the flash. He loves the applause. But he hates the paperwork. For 5 years, I have run his entire life from the shadows. I built his agency. I structured his deals. I managed his taxes. He thinks he is a genius businessman because the credit cards never get declined. He never stopped to ask who was paying the bills. Then there is Ebony, my younger sister, the golden child. She is 30 years old and calls herself a lifestyle influencer. My mother, Mama Estella, worships the ground Ebony walks on. Ebony is beautiful, vibrant, and completely hollow. She has spent her entire life wanting what I have. When I got a doll, she broke it. When I got straight, as she mocked me for being a nerd. When I bought my penthouse, she told everyone I must have done something illegal to afford it. I should have known it would come to this. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was supposed to be in Zurich for a client meeting, but the trip was cut short when the audit finished early. I decided to surprise Dante. I stopped at his favorite steakhouse and picked up a tomahawk ribeye. I bought a bottle of the vintage red wine he pretended to know about. I took the private elevator up to our penthouse in the Gold Coast neighborhood. The apartment was my pride and joy. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Italian marble floors. It was a symbol of everything I had built with my own 2 hands. I walked in, and the first thing I noticed was the smell. It was not the scent of the expensive candles I kept in the foyer. It was her perfume. Ebony wore a heavy, floral scent that clung to everything like a virus. I frowned. Why was my sister in my house when I was out of the country? I walked down the hallway. My heels clicked softly on the marble, but the sound was drowned out by the music coming from the master bedroom. It was Luther Vandross, my favorite. Dante never played Luther unless he was trying to apologize or trying to seduce someone. I pushed the bedroom door open. The scene before me was like a cliché from a bad movie, but the pain was sharp and real. Dante was in our bed. Ebony was straddling him. They were laughing. They were drinking champagne out of the crystal flutes I had bought for our anniversary. They froze when they saw me. For a second there was silence, just the sound of Luther singing about a house not being a home. Then Dante smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It was a cruel, arrogant grin. He did not scramble to cover himself. He did not apologize. He leaned back against the headboard and took a sip of champagne. "You are home early, Zola," he said. His voice was casual, as if he were commenting on the weather. Ebony giggled. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and triumph. She adjusted the sheet to cover herself, but her eyes were challenging me. "Hi, sis," she said. "Do not be mad. We were just keeping each other company. You are always so busy with your little spreadsheets. Dante gets lonely." I felt a cold numbness spread from my chest to my fingertips. It was the same feeling I got when I found a discrepancy in a ledger. The emotion shut down. The analytical brain took over. I looked at them, and I did not see my husband and sister. I saw liabilities. I saw bad investments that needed to be liquidated. I set the bag with the steak on the floor. I did not say a word. Dante laughed. "Look at her, Ebony. She is in shock. She does not know what to do." He looked at me, his eyes narrowing. "What are you going to do, Zola? Are you going to divorce me? Go ahead. Try it." I stayed silent, watching him dig his own grave. "Everything we have is tied up in the agency," Dante sneered. "The cars, the accounts, this apartment. It is all under the company umbrella. And who is the CEO of the company? I am. You are just a glorified bookkeeper. If you leave with nothing. Two hands empty. You cannot afford to fight me, Zola. I know what you make." Ebony rested her head on his chest, looking at me with mock sympathy. "He is right, Zola," she said. "You are so dry, so boring. Dante needs a real woman. A woman who knows how to enjoy life, not someone who wears black suits and counts pennies. We did you a favor, really. Now you can go find a nice librarian who matches your energy." She reached out and stroked Dante's chest. "Besides, Mom always said Dante and I made a better couple." That was the line that did it. Mom always said. My mother knew. She had probably encouraged this. The betrayal was not just in this room, it was in my DNA. I looked at the clock on the bedside table. It was 2 p.m. The banks closed at 5 p.m. I had 3 hours. I turned away from them and walked to the large painting of the Chicago skyline on the far wall. "What is she doing?" Dante asked, his voice sounding bored. I ignored him. I swung the painting open, revealing the wall safe. "Hey, Dante," shouted, sitting up. "That is my safe. Stay out of there." I punched in the code. He thought the code was his birthday. It wasn't. It was the date I incorporated the holding company that actually owned everything. The safe beeped and swung open. I reached inside. I ignored the stacks of cash. I ignored the watches. I reached for the velvet pouch in the back. It contained my grandmother's diamond jewelry, the only thing in this world that had sentimental value to me. I slipped it into my pocket. Then I reached for my passport. And finally, I reached for the red USB drive. It was small, innocuous. It looked like a piece of plastic junk. But on that drive was the entire digital history of Dante's business. Every wire transfer, every tax evasion scheme he thought he had hidden, every dollar he had siphoned off to pay for Ebony's designer bags, and most importantly, the operating agreement that proved he did not own the agency. I did. I closed the safe. "You taking your little trinkets?" Dante scoffed. "Go ahead, take them, pawn them. You are going to need the cash for a motel room." I walked to the closet. I pulled out my Louis Vuitton carry-on. I didn't pack clothes. I didn't pack shoes. I walked to the desk in the corner of the room and packed my laptop. Ebony laughed again. "Look at her run, Dante. She is not even fighting for you. That is how much she cared. She is cold, ice cold." I zipped the bag shut. I stood up and smoothed my blazer. I looked at them one last time. Dante was still drinking champagne, confident in his power. Ebony was basking in her victory, thinking she had stolen the prize. They looked like royalty, but they were sitting on a throne made of matchsticks, and I was holding the lighter. I walked to the door. Leaving so soon, Dante called out, "Do not forget to leave your key. You do not live here anymore." I stopped. I reached into my purse and pulled out the key fob for the penthouse. I dropped it on the floor. It made a sharp clatter against the marble. Then I walked out. I walked down the hallway past the guest room where my mother stayed when she visited, past the kitchen where I had cooked 1,000 meals. I walked to the private elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, I pulled out my phone. I dialed a number. It was Liam, Ebony's husband. He answered on the second ring. Zola. Hey, is everything okay? Liam. I said, my voice steady and calm. I need you to meet me at the Ritz-Carlton in 30 minutes. Why? What is going on? I just walked out on Dante, I said. And I think you are going to want to see what I have on this USB drive. There was a silence on the line. Then Liam spoke, his voice tight. Is it about Ebony? It is about everything, Liam, I said. Meet me in the bar, and bring your divorce lawyer's number. We are going to need it. I hung up. The elevator reached the lobby. The doorman tipped his hat to me. Good afternoon, Mrs. Rossi. Heading out again. Ms. Wilson, I corrected him. And yes, I am heading out. I walked out into the cool Chicago air. The wind hit my face, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt clean. I hailed a taxi. To the Ritz, I told the driver. I sat back and watched the city pass by. Dante thought he had won. He thought he had broken me. He thought I was a boring accountant who would crawl away and hide. He was about to find out that the most dangerous person in the room is the one who knows where the money is buried. I touched the USB drive in my pocket. The war had started, and I was going to enjoy every single second of it. The lobby of the Ritz-Carlton was a sanctuary of hushed conversations and the soft clinking of crystal. I walked through the gold revolving doors, my heels sinking into the plush carpet. I approached the front desk and slid my personal Amex Centurion card across the marble. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly before she typed rapidly and handed me a key card. Welcome back, Ms. Wilson. The presidential suite is ready for you. I took the key and headed straight for the bar. It was dimly lit, smelling of aged leather and expensive scotch. Liam was already there, sitting in a corner booth nursing a beer. He looked out of place, his kind face etched with worry. Liam was a good man, a successful architect from a blue-blood Boston family who had fallen for Ebony's carefully curated Instagram persona. He had no idea he was married to a viper. I slid into the booth opposite him. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. Zola, he said, his voice tight with anxiety. You sounded serious on the phone. Is everyone okay? Is it Mom? No, Liam? I said, placing the red USB drive on the table between us. Mom is fine, but your marriage is over. Liam blinked, a nervous laugh escaping his lips. What are you talking about? Ebony and I are fine. We just booked a trip to Cabo. I unlocked my phone. I pulled up the app that controlled the hidden security cameras in my penthouse. I had installed them months ago, not to spy on Dante, but to monitor the cleaning staff. Ironically, they had caught trash of a different kind. I turned the screen toward him. Watch. I watched Liam's face as the video played. He saw his wife, my sister, straddling my husband in my bed. He saw them laughing. He heard Ebony mocking him, calling him a soft touch and bragging about spending his bonus on a new purse. The color drained from his face. He looked like he was going to be sick. He pushed the phone away, his hands trembling violently. No, he whispered. This is a deepfake. This isn't real. Zola, tell me this isn't real. It is real. Liam, I said, my voice soft but firm. I just left them there. They are probably still celebrating. They think they have won. They think I am going to roll over and play dead. Liam put his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. I suspected, he choked out. I suspected something was wrong. She is always on her phone late at night. She hides her screen. But Dante, your husband, they are family. They are parasites, I corrected him. And they have been feeding on us for years. But the feast ends today. I leaned forward, grabbing his wrist to make him look at me. Listen to me, Liam. You cannot fall apart right now. If you confront her tonight, she will spin a story. She will gaslight you. She will hide assets, and she will try to take full custody of your daughter just to spite you. You need to be smart. You need to be cold. What do I do? He asked, tears streaming down his face. I want to kill him. I want to throw her out. Not yet, I said. We are going to play the long game. I need you to do something for me. There is a safe in Ebony's closet, the one she says she lost the key to. I know you know where the spare key is. I need you to open it and get the ledger she keeps hidden in there, the one with the black cover. Liam frowned. The black book. She says that is her diary. It is not a diary, I said. It is a record of every kickback she gets from promoting fake products and every dollar she has siphoned from your joint accounts to pay for Dante's gambling debts. I need that book, Liam. If you get me that book, I will make sure you get full custody of your daughter, and you won't pay Ebony a single dime in alimony. Do we have a deal? Liam looked at the phone again at the image of his wife betraying him. He wiped his face with a cocktail napkin. His expression hardened. The nice guy from Boston was gone. In his place was a man who had just realized he was sleeping with the enemy. Deal, he said. We shook hands. It was not a friendly shake, it was a pact spoken in blood and betrayal. I stood up. Go home, Liam. Act normal. Tell her you love her, wait until she is in the shower, then get the book. I will call you tomorrow. I left him in the bar and took the elevator to the penthouse suite I needed to set up my war room. The night was just beginning, and I had a dinner reservation to cancel, or rather a dinner payment to decline. 3 miles away at Maple and Ash, one of Chicago's most expensive steakhouses. Dante and Ebony were seated at the best table in the house. They were celebrating my departure, ordering like royalty. Dante had ordered the seafood tower, the Wagyu beef, and a bottle of Ace of Spades champagne. They were laughing loud enough to turn heads drunk on their own arrogance, and the champagne I had unknowingly paid for. I knew exactly where they were, because I tracked Dante's phone. I also knew that the bill was about to arrive. I sat on the velvet sofa in my hotel suite, my laptop open in front of me. I logged into the corporate banking portal for Wilson Holdings, the umbrella company that technically owned Dante's agency, and every credit card in his wallet saw the pending transaction pop up Maple and Ash, $2,400. They had really enjoyed themselves. I hovered my mouse over the account status button. Dante thought he had a black card with an unlimited limit. He thought it was his name on the account because I had issued him a supplementary card with his name embossed on the front, but he never read the fine print. The primary account holder was Zola Wilson. The liability was mine. The control was mine. I clicked the button, suspend account, reason, stolen card. Then I waited, back at the restaurant. The waiter arrived with the leather folio. Dante smiled, flashing his teeth at the waitress as he threw the heavy metal card onto the table. Put a 20% tip on there, sweetheart, he said loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. The waitress nodded and walked away. Ebony giggled, leaning into him. You are so generous, baby. Now that Zola is gone, we can finally live the way we deserve. No more budgets, no more lectures. The waitress returned a moment later, her smile tight and apologetic. Sir, I am sorry, but the card was declined. Dante frowned. That is impossible. Run it again. It is a black card. It does not have a limit. I tried it twice, sir. It says the card has been reported stolen, and the account is frozen. Ebony stopped giggling. She sat up straighter. Is there a problem, Dante? Dante laughed nervously, waving his hand. It is just a bank glitch. Zola probably forgot to pay the bill, knowing her. Here, try this one. He pulled out his platinum business card, the one he used for travel expenses. The waitress took it and walked away. 5 minutes later, she was back. This time, the manager was with her. Sir, this card is also declined. The issuer has flagged all cards associated with this account for fraud. Dante's face went from flushed to pale. He patted his pockets. He pulled out his personal debit card. Try this one, declined, insufficient funds. Of course it was insufficient. He had spent his last $500 on the champagne. The manager crossed his arms. Sir, the bill is $2,400. We need a valid form of payment immediately, or I will have to call the police, Ebony hissed. Dante, fix this. Everyone is staring. Dante grabbed his phone. I am going to call her. She must have done something. That petty little. My phone rang in the hotel suite. I looked at the caller ID. It was Dante. I let it ring twice before answering, putting it on speaker. Hello, I said, my voice calm and uninterested. Zola. Dante screamed. What the hell did you do? The cards are not working. We are at Maple and Ash, and they are threatening to call the cops. Turn them back on right now. Oh, I am sorry, Dante, I said, taking a sip of sparkling water. My cards are working fine, but I did report several cards stolen today. You see, I left my husband and I realized he had a habit of spending money that did not belong to him, so I froze the corporate accounts. You can't do that, he shouted, veins bulging in his neck. It is my company. It is my money. Actually, it is not. I said I checked the operating agreement. The one you signed 5 years ago. You are an employee, Dante. And as the CEO of Wilson Holdings, I have terminated your employment effective immediately. Using company cards for personal meals is embezzlement. You should probably find another way to pay. Zola. Wait. Ebony grabbed the phone. Listen to me, you jealous witch. Turn the cards on, or I will tell Mom what you are doing. You are embarrassing us. You embarrassed yourself when you slept with my husband, Ebony, I said. And by the way, enjoy the dinner. It is the last meal you are going to eat on my dime. I hung up. I watched the GPS dot on my laptop screen, stay stationary at the restaurant for another hour. I later learned that Ebony had to call her husband Liam to come down and pay the bill. Liam showed up, played the part of the confused husband, paid the tab and drove them home, silently gathering ammunition for his own war. Dante and Ebony left the restaurant humiliated, furious, and broke. But they were not scared yet. They still thought this was just a messy breakup. They thought they could bully me into submission. They had no idea that I had just fired the warning shot. The real missiles were launching tomorrow morning. And when they landed, there would be nothing left of their fake empire but dust. The morning sun sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my real office in downtown Chicago, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. My family thought I worked in a cubicle farm doing data entry for a mid-sized firm. They had no idea that I owned the entire 34th floor of the Willis Tower. The sign on the glass door read, Zola Wilson and Associates Private Wealth Management. Inside it was a fortress of silence and productivity. My team of analysts was already hard at work, tracking hidden assets for a divorce case involving a tech billionaire. But my mind was focused on a much smaller, much greer balance sheet. My own. I sat behind my desk, which was made of reclaimed wood and cost more than Dante's car. On my screens, I watched the chaos unfolding in my personal accounts. Dante had tried to charge an Uber Black at 4 in the morning. Declined. Ebony had tried to buy a latte at Starbucks. Declined. They were waking up to a new reality, a world where plastic did not equal magic money. I took a sip of my black coffee, feeling a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. Then my personal phone vibrated against the mahogany. It was a rhythmic, angry buzz that shattered the peace. I looked at the caller ID. Mama Estella. I had been expecting this call. Dante and Ebony would have run straight to her, crying about how mean Zola cut off their allowance. They would have spun a story about how I was being unreasonable, how I was overreacting to a little misunderstanding. Mama Estella, the matriarch who believed appearances were more important than oxygen, would be furious. I swiped answer and put the phone on speaker. I did not say hello. Zola, the voice on the other end, screeched so loud I had to turn the volume down. What in the name of God are you doing? I have Ebony here in tears. She says you stranded them at a restaurant. She says you stole Dante's keys. Have you lost your mind? Good morning to you too, Mama. I said, my voice flat and professional, as if I were speaking to a difficult client. Do not use that tone with me, young lady, Mama Estella snapped. You are making a scene, Zola. A public scene. Do you know who Dante is? He is a respected agent. He cannot have his card declined in front of people. It looks bad for the family. And poor Ebony, she is sensitive. You know she has anxiety. You scared her half to death. I leaned back in my ergonomic chair, looking out at the city skyline. Did they tell you why I cut the cards, Mama? Did they mention where I found them yesterday afternoon? There was a pause on the line, a hesitation that told me she knew. She knew exactly what they had done and she did not care. I heard some nonsense about you coming home early, Estella said, her tone dismissive. Look, Zola, I know you are hurt. It is not ideal. But you are blowing this way out of proportion. Your sister just made a little mistake. She slipped up. And Dante, well, he is a man. Men have needs, Zola. It is nature. I felt a vein throb in my temple. My mother was justifying incest and adultery as nature. You have always been so cold, Zola Estella continued, gaining steam. So dry. Always working, always tired. Can you blame him for looking for a little warmth? Ebony is vibrant. She is full of life. She just wanted to comfort him. It was a moment of weakness. It does not mean you have to burn the whole house down. Comfort him, I repeated. In my bed. You need to learn to forgive, Estella preached. That is what a good wife does. You need to keep your man. You think it is easy finding a husband at your age, especially with your attitude. You should be grateful Dante stuck around this long. Now I want you to go home. I want you to apologize for humiliating them, and I want you to turn those cards back on immediately. Dante has a big deal closing this week. He needs capital. You are messing with his livelihood. His livelihood, I thought. The livelihood I built. The livelihood I funded. I am not going home, Mama, I said. And I am not turning the cards on. The money is gone. Don't lie to me, Estella hissed. I know you have money. You always have money squirreled away. You are stingy just like your father. You are going to fix this, Zola. Or so help me God, I will disown you. I will tell everyone what a jealous, bitter woman you are. Disown me. The threat hung in the air. She thought she held the power. She thought her approval was the currency I traded in. She didn't realize that the currency I traded in was actual US dollars and she was currently running a deficit. I looked at the file open on my computer screen. It was a PDF invoice from Silver Creek Manor, the luxury assisted living facility where Mama Estella lived. It was a 5-star resort disguised as a nursing home. Gourmet meals, daily housekeeping, a heated pool, and a staff that catered to her every whim. It cost $12,000 a month. And for the last 3 years, the bill had been paid automatically from my personal account. Not Dante's, not the company's, mine. Estella thought Dante paid it. She thanked him for it every Sunday dinner. She bragged to her friends about her successful son-in-law who treated her like a queen. She had never once thanked me. I am not fixing anything, Mama, I said. But since you brought up money, I think we need to talk about your living arrangements. What are you talking about? She asked, suspicious. I just sent you an email, I said. It is the invoice for Silver Creek. The payment is due on the 1st of the month. That is in 5 days. So pay it, Estella snapped. Stop wasting my time. I can't pay it, Mama, I said, keeping my voice fake sweet. You see, you just told me I am a failure as a wife. You told me I am stingy. And you are right. I am broke. Since Dante is the successful businessman and Ebony is the vibrant influencer, I am sure they can handle it. What? Estella's voice trembled slightly. I just canceled the autopay, I said. I forwarded the bill to your email. It is $12,000. I also sent a copy to Dante and Ebony. I am sure with his big deal closing and her internet fame they can scrape it together. There was silence on the line. Dead silence. You can't do that, Estella whispered. They don't have that kind of money. Dante said his cash flow is tight right now. I thought he was a big shot, I said, feigning surprise. I thought I was just the bookkeeper. Surely he has 12 grand for his favorite mother-in-law, or maybe Ebony can sell some of those purses I bought her. Zola, please. Estella's voice changed instantly. The arrogance evaporated, replaced by pure panic. You know I can't leave Silver Creek. My bridge club is here. My friends are here. It would be humiliating. Where would I go? Maybe you can move in with Dante and Ebony, I suggested. They are going to need a roommate. I hear they are looking for a condo. A small one. Zola stopped this immediately, turned the autopay back on. You are my daughter. You owe me. I owe you respect, I said. I do not owe you $12,000 a month to insult me. You made your choice, Mama. You chose the golden child. You chose the cheater. Now you can live with them, literally. But Zola, wait. I didn't mean it. I was just upset. I hung up the phone. I sat there for a moment, listening to the silence of my office. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, but I brushed it away angrily. I was done crying for people who only loved me when the check cleared. I opened my email and sent one more message. This one was to the administration at Silver Creek Manor, to whom it may concern. Please be advised that effective immediately, I will no longer be responsible for the financial obligations of resident Estella Wilson. Please direct all future invoices to her directly or to her next of kin, Dante and Ebony Wilson. Thank you. I hit send. I watched the progress bar turn from blue to green. Sent. Mama Estella was about to find out that pride does not pay the rent. And Dante and Ebony were about to get a very expensive roommate. The financial war had just claimed its first casualty, and I was just getting started. I turned back to my work. I had a billionaire to audit, and unlike my family, he actually paid his bills. The 34th floor of the Willis Tower was a fortress of glass and steel, a world away from the chaotic domestic drama I had left behind. My office was a sanctuary of silence, broken only by the hum of the server room and the soft click of my mouse. I had the master file for the Dante Brooks Agency open on my dual monitors. It was a beautiful, intricate web of corporate structuring that I had woven 5 years ago. A web that Dante had walked into willingly, blindly, and with a smile on his face. I remembered the day he signed the papers vividly. It was a Tuesday, much like this one. He had come home drunk, depressed, because he had gambled away the agency's payroll at a riverboat casino. He was crying on the kitchen floor, begging me to fix it, begging me to save his reputation. I told him I would bail him out. I told him I would restructure the debt. But there was a condition. He had to sign over the controlling interest of the agency to a holding company I created, Z Holdings LLC, to protect his assets from creditors. He didn't even read the document. He didn't ask who owned Z Holdings. He just saw the check for $50,000 that would cover his gambling losses, and he grabbed the pen. He signed his name with a flourish, wiped his tears, and went straight to the bar to celebrate. He thought he had dodged a bullet. In reality, he had just signed his own employment contract. I looked at the clause 4B on the screen. It stated clearly in black and white, "The principal agent, Dante Brooks, serves at the pleasure of the board of directors of Z Holdings and may be terminated for cause, including but not limited to misappropriation of funds and conduct detrimental to the company image." Sleeping with the CEO's sister definitely counted as conduct detrimental to the company image. My intercom buzzed, interrupting my review. It was Sarah, my receptionist. Her voice was tight, professional, but edged with panic. "Miss Wilson, there is a man here. He says he is your husband. He is shouting. He just jumped. The turnstile. Let him in." "Sarah," I said calmly, "I have been expecting him." A moment later, the double glass doors to my suite flew open, pushing against their magnetic locks until they gave way. Dante stormed in. He looked like a wreck. He was wearing the same suit from yesterday, but it was rumpled, and he clearly hadn't showered. His eyes were wild, bloodshot, and manic. He marched across the plush carpet, ignoring the stunned looks of my analysts. "Zola!" he roared, slamming his hands onto my reclaimed wood desk, making my coffee cup jump. "You froze the payroll. I have athletes calling me. They can't access their stipends. You shut down the whole system. Turn it back on right now." I didn't flinch. I didn't stand up. I just leaned back in my Herman Miller chair and crossed my legs. "Hello, Dante," I said smoothly. "Welcome to my office. Nice of you to finally visit. You usually only come here when you need a check." "Cut the crap, Zola," he spat, leaning over the desk, his breath smelling of stale alcohol and mints. "I am the CEO of this agency. You are just the accountant. You work for me. You don't have the authority to freeze my accounts. I am going to call the bank and have you arrested for corporate sabotage." I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "You are the CEO?" I asked, tilting my head. "Is that what you think?" "It is what I am," he screamed, slamming his hand down again. "I built this brand. My face is on the billboard. My name is on the door. Your name is on the door. Because I leased the office space for you," I said. My voice dropped an octave, deadly serious. "And your face is on the billboard, because I paid for the marketing campaign. But you didn't build anything, Dante. You just spent what I made." I spun my monitor around, facing him. "Look at this." He squinted at the screen, confusing, clouding his rage. "What is this legal mumbo-jumbo?" "Read the top line." "Dante," I pointed, "the owner. The sole proprietor of the Dante Brooks Agency intellectual property client list and future revenue streams is Z Holdings LLC. So what he— "So what?" sneered. "You set that up. It is our shell company." "Wrong," I said. "It is my shell company. I am the sole member of Z Holdings. You own 0%. You are an employee, Dante, a salaried employee, and a very expensive one at that." He stared at the screen, trying to process the words. His mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "That is not true. I signed a partnership agreement." "You signed a transfer of ownership," I corrected. "You didn't read it because you were too busy thinking about your next drink. You gave me everything 5 years ago to save your own skin, and now I am exercising my rights as the owner." I tapped a key on my keyboard. A printer behind me whirred to life, spitting out a single sheet of paper. I reached back, grabbed it, and slid it across the desk toward him. "What is this?" he asked, looking at the paper as if it were a bomb. "This is your notice of termination," I said. "You are fired." "Dante fired," he shouted, his voice cracking. "You can't fire me." "It is my name. It is my trademark," I said. "I own the name. Dante Brooks Agency. I own the logo. And as of this morning, I have notified all your clients that you are no longer authorized to represent them due to financial impropriety. Most of them have already signed with my new in-house agent, a nice kid from Harvard. He charges half your commission and doesn't sleep with my sister." Dante's face turned a violent shade of purple. The realization was hitting him like a freight train. He wasn't a boss. He wasn't a mogul. He was an unemployed mascot. "You stole my life," he screamed, lunging across the desk. He grabbed my laptop and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, sending plastic and glass flying across the room. "You witch! You stole everything!" I reached under my desk and pressed the silent panic button. "I didn't steal anything." "Dante," I said, keeping my voice level, despite the violence, "I just took back what I paid for. You have been living on a scholarship funded by my hard work, and today, expulsion day has arrived." He came around the desk, his fists clenched. "I am going to kill you," he hissed. "I am going to wring your neck." Before he could take 2 steps, the office doors burst open again. 2 men walked in. They were not mall cops, they were private security contractors. I kept on retainer, former military, massive and completely humorless. One of them was named Tiny, a 6'5" wall of muscle who had guarded me during high-risk audits. Tiny stepped in front of me, intercepting Dante effortlessly. He grabbed Dante by the back of his expensive suit jacket and the seat of his pants, lifting him onto his toes. "Get your hands off me!" Dante shrieked, kicking his legs, flailing like a toddler having a tantrum. "Do you know who I am, Mr. Brooks?" Tiny said, his voice like gravel. "We have been instructed to escort you from the premises. You are trespassing." "I own this place," Dante yelled, spitting as he struggled. Tiny looked at me for confirmation. "He doesn't own a paperclip in this building," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. "Get him out, and Tiny, make sure he doesn't take the elevator. Make him take the stairs. It is a long walk down from the 34th floor. You will pay for this." "Zola!" Dante screamed, as Tiny dragged him toward the door, his Italian loafers skidding on the carpet. "I will sue you. I will take everything. You have no money for a lawyer, Dante," I called after him, my voice echoing into the hallway. "Use the stairs. It is good cardio." The doors swung shut, silencing his screams instantly. The office returned to its peaceful hum. My analysts, who had paused to watch the show, slowly turned back to their screens, whispering excitedly. I stood up and walked to the wall where my shattered laptop lay. I picked up a piece of the broken screen. It was a small price to pay for freedom. I walked back to my desk and picked up the phone. I dialed the building security. "This is Zola Wilson in 3400, I said. "Make sure Dante Brooks is banned from the building, permanent entry denial. And if he comes back, call the police immediately." I hung up. I looked at the termination letter still sitting on my desk, where he had left it. I picked it up, folded it neatly, and placed it in the shredder. I watched his career turn into confetti. Dante thought he was the king of Chicago. He just found out he was merely the court jester, and the queen had just dismissed him. I sat back down and opened a new file. It was time to audit Ebony. The glow of the ring light reflected in Ebony's eyes, making her tears look like shimmering diamonds, perfect for high-definition viewing. She sat on the plush velvet sofa in the living room of the villa, wearing a beige loungewear set that looked modest, but cost more than most people's rent. She had set the stage perfectly. A box of tissues was strategically placed next to her, and she had applied just enough makeup to look beautiful but devastated. She checked her angles one last time, made sure the subscriber count was climbing, and then hit the go live button. "Hey guys," she whispered into the camera, her voice trembling with practiced fragility. I did not want to do this. I really did not. I usually keep my family matters private because, I am all about positivity and light. But I just cannot stay silent anymore. My heart is literally breaking right now. I watched from the doorway, my hand gripping the doorframe so hard my knuckles turned white. It took every ounce of self-control I possessed not to walk over there and smash that phone against the wall. But Zola had told me to wait. She had told me to play the part. The long game. "Liam," she had said, "stick to the plan." So I forced my face into a mask of concerned husband and waited in the shadows. On the screen, comments were already flying by. Heart emojis, crying faces, people asking who hurt her. Ebony wiped a single tear from her cheek and looked directly into the lens. "It is about my sister Zola," she said, letting her voice crack. "You guys know I have always looked up to her, but ever since my husband and I started doing well, she has changed. She has become so bitter, so jealous. And today she did the unthinkable. She cut off the funding for our mother's nursing home. Our mother is sick, you guys. She is helpless, and Zola just pulled the plug because she is mad at me for being happy." The comments exploded. "Cancel Zola. What a monster we got you, Eb. Drop the cash. App." Ebony sniffled loudly, leaning into the camera. "Zola has millions tucked away. She manages money for billionaires, but she would rather see our mother on the street than see me succeed. It is just so toxic. I'm trying to be the bigger person, but it is hard when your own blood turns on you. If you guys could just send some prayers and maybe help us keep Mama off the street, I would be so grateful." I linked the donation fund in my bio. She kept it up for another 10 minutes, weaving a tapestry of lies that painted Zola as a villain straight out of a Disney movie. She cried about how hard she worked. She cried about how she tried to fix things. She accepted $5,000 in donations from her gullible followers in real time, thanking them with a brave little smile. When she finally ended the stream, the transformation was instant and terrifying. The second the screen went black, the tears stopped. Her shoulders dropped, and she let out a long, annoyed sigh. She tossed the phone onto the cushion and picked up her wineglass, taking a massive gulp. "Did you see those numbers?" she asked, her voice completely normal, devoid of any sadness. "We hit 50,000 viewers. That is a record. The engagement is going to be insane. My sponsorship rates just doubled." I walked into the room, forcing myself to look at her with adoration instead of disgust. "You were so brave, babe," I said, sitting down next to her. "I cannot believe Zola would do this to us. You handled that perfectly." Ebony rolled her eyes, leaning back against the cushions. "Zola is a witch. She thinks she can cut me off. She thinks she is the only one who knows how to make money. Watch me bury her. I am going to turn the whole internet against her. By tomorrow morning she won't be able to walk down the street without someone spitting on her." I reached for her hand, suppressing the urge to recoil. "You are right," I said. "She deserves it. But babe, you look exhausted. All that crying, it takes a lot out of you. Why don't you go take a long hot bath? I will handle the comments for you. I can delete the trolls and pin the supportive ones so it looks good for the algorithm." Ebony looked at me and smiled. A lazy, satisfied smile. "You are the best." "Liam, seriously. I don't know what I would do without you. You are the only man in this family who isn't useless like Dante." She handed me her phone unlocked. "Here, keep the momentum going. If anyone asks for the Cash App link, DM it to them directly and block anyone who mentions Zola's side of the story." I took the phone. It felt heavy in my hand, hot from the battery usage. "Go relax, babe," I said. "I got this." She kissed my cheek and sauntered off toward the master bathroom, humming a pop song as if she hadn't just destroyed her sister's reputation for profit. I waited until I heard the water running. I waited until the heavy oak door clicked shut. Then I moved fast. I did not delete comments. I opened the browser and typed in the URL Zola had given me. It was a ghost link, a download portal for a piece of software used by corporate investigators to track employee misconduct. It wasn't just a tracker. It was a total mirror. It would record every keystroke, every password, every deleted text, and every conversation the microphone picked up. It would upload everything to a secure server that Zola and I could access. My fingers flew across the screen. The download bar crawled forward, agonizingly slow. I glanced at the bathroom door, hearing Ebony singing in the shower. "Come on," I whispered. The bar hit 100%. The icon appeared on the home screen and then vanished just as Zola promised, hiding itself deep in the system files, invisible to anyone but an expert. I was about to put the phone down when a text message came through. It was from a group chat labeled The Real Ones. Ebony's inner circle of influencer friends. I opened it. Ebony's text from 5 minutes ago read, "You guys will not believe the bag I just secured. My sister cut me off, so I went live and cried about my mom. The sheep are eating it up. I already made 5 grand in donations from these losers. I am going to use it to buy that Birkin. I wanted LOL poverty. Looks good on me." I guess I stared at the message. The sheep, the losers. She was mocking the very people who were paying her bills. She was bragging about fraud. I took a screenshot and sent it to my secret email. Then I deleted the screenshot from her gallery. I heard the water stop running. I quickly closed the apps and opened Instagram, pretending to scroll through the comments just as Ebony walked out wrapped in a fluffy white towel, a clay mask on her face. Did you get the trolls? She asked, drying her hair. Every single one, I lied, handing her the phone back. You are pure light, babe. The internet loves you. She took the phone, scrolling through the adoration, her ego swelling with every like. They should love me, she said, scrolling past the message she had sent to her friends, unaware that I had seen the darkness beneath the glitter. I am a star. Liam. And stars always shine. No matter how much shade Zola tries to throw, I smiled at her, a tight grimace that she mistook for pride. You are right, Ebony, I said. You are going to be famous. I watched her walk away, tapping out a reply to her friends, unaware that she was now carrying a wire in her pocket. Unaware that every word she typed, every lie she told, and every person she scammed was being recorded in high definition. She thought she was building an empire, but she was actually building her own prison cell, brick by digital brick, and I was going to be the one to lock the door. It was midnight in Chicago, and while I was sitting in the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton sipping chamomile tea, my husband and sister were breaking a sweat in my former bedroom. I had the security feed pulled up on my laptop screen, watching them like rats in a maze trying to find cheese that had been moved days ago. Dante was holding a heavy-duty power drill he must have borrowed from the building maintenance guy, because he certainly did not own one. Sweat was dripping down his forehead, ruining the collar of his silk shirt. Ebony was standing behind him, holding a flashlight from her phone, her other hand clutching a glass of wine she had found in the back of the pantry. They were trying to break into the wall safe behind the painting of the skyline. Dante was convinced that the deed to the penthouse was inside. He had spent the last hour ranting to Ebony about how they were going to sell the apartment for $4 million cash. He told her they would take the money and fly to the Maldives, where I couldn't touch them. He was so confident, so sure that the apartment was a marital asset that he owned half of. He did not realize that in my world, ownership is 9/10 of the law, and he did not know the law. Hurry up, Dante, Ebony whined, shifting her weight from foot to foot. If Zola comes back and sees us drilling into the wall, she is going to call the cops. Let her come, Dante grunted, leaning his weight into the drill. The bit shrieked against the metal lock. This is my house, Ebony. I can drill a hole in the wall if I want to. Once we get that deed, we can list the place tomorrow. I know a guy who buys luxury real estate cash. No questions asked. We will be millionaires by the weekend, and Zola can keep her little accounting job. The drill gave a final high-pitched whine and then punched through the mechanism. Dante killed the power and tossed the tool onto my Egyptian cotton duvet. He grabbed the handle of the safe and wrenched it open. The heavy steel door swung wide, revealing the dark interior. Jackpot! Dante shouted, reaching inside, his eyes wide with greed. Ebony leaned in closer, the flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. What is inside? Is it the deed? Is it cash? Dante reached into the safe, expecting to feel the heavy bound paper of a property deed, or stacks of $100 bills. Instead, his hand closed around air. He frowned, feeling around frantically. He pulled his hand out and then reached in with both hands, groping the empty metal box. It is empty, he whispered, his voice trembling with confusion. No, that is impossible. She keeps everything in here. The passports, the bonds, the deed. Where is it? He shined the flashlight into the back of the safe. There was nothing there except for a single small square of yellow paper stuck to the back wall. A sticky note. Dante ripped it off the wall and held it up to the light. Ebony crowded in next to him, reading over his shoulder. What does it say? She asked. Dante read it out loud, his voice getting quieter with every word. Dear Dante and Ebony, I hope you are enjoying your treasure hunt. You are looking for the deed to this penthouse worth $4 million. You assume that because we lived here for 5 years we own it. You are wrong. This apartment is leased by Z Holdings LLC as corporate housing for its employees. Since I terminated your employment yesterday, your housing allowance has also been terminated. The lease expires at midnight tonight. Technically, 2 minutes ago, Chooch Henderson, the landlord, has been notified of the vacancy. Chooch luck. Dante stared at the note, his brain unable to process the information. Leased, he stammered. But we renovated the kitchen. We put in the marble floors. Who rents a place and puts in marble floors? People who know how to write off capital improvements on their taxes. I whispered to my laptop screen, taking another sip of tea. Before Dante could crumble the note in rage, the front door buzzer screamed through the silent apartment. It was not the polite ring of a guest. It was the insistent, long press of authority. Dante jumped, dropping the note. "Who is that?" "It is midnight," Ebony hissed, panic rising in her voice. "You don't think?" They ran out of the bedroom and down the hallway to the foyer. Dante looked through the peephole and stumbled back as if he had been shot. "It is the police," he whispered, "and some guy in a suit." "Open the door." "Brooks," a voice boomed from the other side. It was Mr. Henderson. He was an old friend of mine from business school and a man who did not suffer fools. He also happened to be the actual owner of the building. Dante opened the door, trying to compose himself, trying to summon the arrogance that usually got him through life. "Officer Mr. Henderson, what is the meaning of this disturbing? The peace at this hour?" Mr. Henderson stepped inside, followed by two uniformed police officers. Henderson was holding a clipboard, looking at Dante with pure disdain. "Mr. Brooks, the lease on this unit expired at 11:59 p.m. Since we did not receive a renewal notice from the leaseholder, Ms. Wilson, and since she informed us that unauthorized squatters were on the premises, we are here to secure the property." "Squatters," Dante shouted, his face turning purple. "I am her husband. I have lived here for 5 years. This is my marital home. You can't just kick me out." "Actually, we can," one of the officers said, stepping forward, his hand resting on his belt. "The tenant of record is a corporation. The corporation has surrendered the keys. You are not on the lease. You are trespassing." "But where are we supposed to go?" Ebony cried, stepping out from behind Dante, hugging herself. "It is freezing outside. We have nowhere to go." Mr. Henderson shrugged, looking around the foyer, checking for damage. "That is not my concern, ma'am. You have 5 minutes to gather your personal essentials. That means clothes and toiletries. Anything else stays here until we can inventory it against the security deposit." "This is illegal," Dante screamed. "I am going to sue you. I know my rights." "You have the right to remain silent," the officer said, stepping into Dante's personal space. "Or you can be arrested for criminal trespassing and destruction of property." We heard the drill. "Mr. Brooks, do you want to leave in a taxi or a squad car?" Dante looked at the officer, then at Henderson, then at Ebony, who was already crying hysterically. He realized he had no cards left to play. "The bluff was over 5 minutes," Henderson said, checking his Rolex. "I watched on the screen as my husband and sister scrambled around the apartment like roaches when the lights turn on. They didn't have time to pack suitcases. They grabbed handfuls of clothes, stuffing them into garbage bags they found under the sink. Dante grabbed his shoes, forgetting his socks. Ebony grabbed her makeup bag, dropping expensive creams on the floor and leaving them there. Exactly 5 minutes later, they were escorted out the front door. The heavy oak door slammed shut behind them, locking with a decisive click. I switched the camera feed to the exterior camera, facing the street. It was a cold, windy Chicago night, the kind of wind that cuts right through silk shirts and thin loungewear. Dante and Ebony stood on the curb, surrounded by black garbage bags, shivering. Dante pulled out his phone, probably trying to call an Uber, but then he threw his hands up in frustration. My credit cards were still declined. The Uber app wouldn't work without a valid payment method. Ebony sat down on one of the trash bags, putting her head in her hands and sobbing loudly into the empty street. I watched for a moment longer, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. They wanted the penthouse, they wanted the lifestyle, they wanted to take everything I had built. But tonight, they were learning the most important lesson of wealth. The only thing you truly own is what you can pay for. And right now, they couldn't even pay for a ride to a motel. I closed my laptop and turned off the light. The war was far from over, but the first battle had been a decisive victory. I pulled the duvet up to my chin and fell asleep to the imaginary sound of the wind howling through their empty pockets. The coffee shop on State Street was crowded, which was exactly why I chose it. I sat in the back corner with my back to the wall, watching the door like a hawk. I had arrived 15 minutes early to scout the room, to check the exits, and to make sure Dante was coming alone. He walked in 10 minutes late, wearing a hooded sweatshirt and jeans that looked like they had been pulled out of a hamper. It was a stark contrast to the bespoke suits he used to wear, but poverty has a way of ruining your aesthetic. He scanned the room, his eyes darting around nervously until they landed on me. He put on a mask of sorrow, instantly drooping his shoulders and bowing his head as he walked toward my table. He sat down without ordering anything. He smelled of cheap motel soap and desperation. I wrapped my hands around my warm latte and waited for the performance to begin. Zola. He started, his voice cracking just the right amount. Thank you for meeting me. I didn't think you would come. I looked at him, keeping my face impassive. I am here, Dante. What do you want? I want to apologize, he said, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled it away before he could touch me. He flinched, looking hurt. I made a mistake, Zola. A huge mistake. I don't know what I was thinking, Ebony. She meant nothing to me. She threw herself at me, and I was weak. I was stressed about the business, and I let her manipulate me. But these last few days, without you living in that awful motel, it made me realize something. You are the only woman I have ever loved. I watched him lie. It was fascinating, really. He was so bad at it. Now that I wasn't blinded by love, I noticed the way his eyes kept flicking to his chest pocket. I noticed how he was sitting stiffly, leaning forward slightly, as if he were trying to capture a sound. He continued, gaining confidence, when I didn't interrupt him. I left her. Zola, I told Ebony. It is over. She is crazy. She is toxic, just like you said. I want to come home. I want to fix us. I am willing to go to counseling. I am willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch. He was sweating slightly on his upper lip. That sounds nice, Dante, I said, my voice neutral. But what about the money? What about the company? He sighed, a long, dramatic exhale. Money doesn't matter, Zola. We can rebuild. But listen, I have been talking to some people, and they think you are not thinking clearly. They think the stress of the job has finally snapped your mind. You know how you get with your anxiety. I am worried about you. You are acting erratic, freezing accounts, kicking your family out. It is not like you, and there it was. The trap. He wasn't here to reconcile. He was here to build a case. He wanted me to scream at him. He wanted me to threaten him. He wanted me to say something unhinged so he could use the recording to petition for a conservatorship, or at the very least use it as leverage in court to prove I was mentally unstable and unfit to manage the assets. He wanted to paint me as the bitter, crazy wife so he could swoop in as the concerned husband and take control of the checkbook again. I looked at the outline of the phone in his breast pocket. The camera lens was peeking out just slightly, facing me. He was recording video, too. I made a split-second decision. If he wanted a performance, I would give him an Oscar-winning one. I let my lower lip tremble. I let my shoulders slump forward, shrinking myself until I looked small and defeated. I squeezed my eyes shut and forced a tear to slide down my cheek. "Oh, Dante," I whispered, my voice shaky. "You are right. I don't know what is happening to me. I feel so lost without you." Dante's eyes lit up. He leaned in closer, the phone in his pocket, adjusting to get a better angle. "It is okay, baby," he cooed. "Say it. Tell me you are overwhelmed. Tell me you need help." "I am overwhelmed," I sobbed quietly, covering my face with my hands. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. I think I am having a breakdown. The pressure of the business is too much for me. I just want it to stop. I just want us to be a family again." Dante reached out and patted my arm, his touch making my skin crawl, but I allowed it. "I can help you, Zola," he said, his voice thick with false sympathy. "I can take the burden off you. You just need to sign the reinstatement papers. You need to give me power of attorney again. Just temporary, of course, until you get better. I can handle the agency. I can handle the bills. You can rest. You can go away to a spa and just sleep." I looked up at him, my eyes wet with fake tears, looking at him with total adoration. "Would you do that for me, Dante? Would you really take care of everything?" "Of course, baby," he said, smiling that predatory smile. "I would do anything for you." I took a deep breath, wiping my face with a napkin. "Okay," I said. "I give up. I can't fight you anymore. I love you too much, and I am too tired to run the company alone." Dante looked like he had just won the lottery. He was practically vibrating with excitement. "So you will sign?" he asked, trying not to sound too eager. "Yes," I said, "but not here. It is too informal. I want to do it properly." "What do you mean?" "Next week is Mom's birthday," I said. "We are throwing her a huge party at the Sapphire Hall. Everyone will be there, the whole family, the community. I want to do it there. I want to show everyone that we are united. I will bring the papers, the transfer of ownership, the power of attorney, everything. I will sign them in front of everyone as a gift to you and to Mom, to show that I am stepping back and letting my husband lead." Dante hesitated for a second, thinking about the timeline. "Next week. That is a long time, Zola. Can't we do it today? I need time to prepare the documents, Dante," I said pleadingly. "And I need time to get myself together. I want to look good for you. Please, just give me 1 week. Come to the party as my husband and I will give you the keys to the kingdom." He looked at me, assessing the risk. He looked at the phone in his pocket, knowing he had my confession of mental instability recorded. He figured he had all the leverage. He figured he had won. "Okay, baby," he said, leaning back. "1 week. I will see you at the party." "Thank you, Dante," I whispered. "You saved me." He stood up, buttoning his jacket, securing the phone that he thought was his smoking gun. "I love you, Zola," he said, lying through his teeth. "Go home and rest. I will see you soon." Walked out of the coffee shop with a bounce in his step. He looked like a man who had just reconquered the world. He pulled his phone out as soon as he hit the sidewalk, probably calling Ebony to tell her the good news. He would tell her that I was broken, that I was crazy, and that they were going to be rich again in 7 days. I watched him go, my tears drying instantly. I picked up my coffee and took a long, calm sip. He thought I was giving him the keys to the kingdom. He didn't realize I was inviting him to his own execution. The party wasn't going to be a celebration of his return. It was going to be the stage for his final destruction. I checked my watch. I had a lot of work to do before next Saturday. I had to draft the papers. He wanted to sign something, I would give him something to sign. But it wouldn't be what he expected. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and walked out of the coffee shop, ready to plan the deadliest birthday party Chicago had ever seen the week leading up to Mama Estella's. Birthday party was a masterclass in deception carried out on 3 different fronts. While I sat in my high-rise office orchestrating the final movements of a symphony of destruction, my husband and sister were huddled in a cramped motel room on the outskirts of O'Hare Airport, planning what they believed to be their coronation. The motel was the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and smelled of industrial cleaner, masking stale cigarettes, But Dante and Ebony did not care. They were too busy spending the millions they thought they were days away from acquiring. I had tapped Dante's laptop days ago so I could see exactly what they were typing. They were drafting a document titled General Durable Power of Attorney and Asset Transfer Agreement. They were not just asking for control of the agency, they were asking for everything. Ebony was sitting on the stained bedspread, dictating terms while painting her toenails. "Make sure you add the rights to her retirement accounts," she said, her voice tinny through my speakers. "And the jewelry, Dante. Put in a clause that says all personal effects in the marital home belong to the husband." "I want those diamonds." She took Dante typed furiously, his face illuminated by the blue light of the screen. "Do not worry, baby. I am adding a competency clause too. It says that due to Zola's admitted mental health crisis, I get full guardianship. If she tries to fight us later, we just play that recording from the coffee shop where she admits she is having a breakdown. We can lock her up and spend her money while she rots in a facility." They laughed, clinking plastic cups of cheap vodka together. They were so arrogant, so sure of their victory, that they did not even bother to encrypt the file. They saved it right to the desktop, confident that the broken woman they met at the coffee shop would sign it without reading a single word. They printed 3 copies on the motel's front desk printer, ready to present them to me at the party like a death warrant wrapped in a birthday bow. While they were planning their future, I was busy digging into their past, specifically the financial past of the Dante Brooks Agency. I sat in a conference room with Special Agent Miller from the FBI, a man who had the demeanor of a shark and the forensic skills to match. I had invited him over to review some interesting anomalies I had found in the agency's ledger. "Look at this, Agent," Miller said, pointing to a series of wire transfers on the projection screen. "These deposits are structured perfectly to avoid automatic federal flagging. They are all exactly $9,900, just under the $10,000 reporting limit. They came in every Friday for the last 2 years from a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands." I nodded, knowing exactly what that meant. "Smurfing," I said. "Structuring deposits to hide the source." "Exactly," Miller said. "And look where the money goes. It sits in the agency operating account for 24 hours and then it is paid out as consulting fees to a company called Lucky 7 Enterprises." Do you know who owns Lucky 7? I did not, but I had a feeling I knew what they did. "It is a front for the Chicago Syndicate," Miller said grimly. "It is a massive illegal sports betting ring. Your husband was not just a bad businessman. Zola. He was a laundromat. He was washing dirty money for the mob, using the agency legit accounts to clean their gambling profits." I felt a chill run down my spine. This was bigger than fraud. This was federal racketeering. This was 20 years in prison minimum. But then a slow, cold smile spread across my face. "Agent Miller," I said, keeping my voice steady. "As you can see from the operating agreement I showed you earlier, Dante Brooks is the sole operator of the agency accounts. I am merely the holding company owner, silent and removed. And here is a copy of the termination letter. I served him last week along with the audit request I filed, proving I was investigating these irregularities before you arrived." Miller looked at the documents, then looked at me with a newfound respect. "You are good," he said. "You are cutting him loose and handing him to us on a silver platter." "He is all yours," I said. "The party is Saturday night. I suggest you bring handcuffs." While I was sealing Dante's fate with the federal government, Liam was at home waging his own silent war. The villa that he had shared with Ebony for 3 years felt empty now, a mausoleum to a dead marriage. He sat in his home office, the glow of his monitor, the only light in the room. He had successfully installed the mirror software on Ebony's phone, and for the last 3 days, he had been downloading everything. The black book she kept in the safe was not a physical book. It was a digital ledger encrypted on her cloud drive, but Liam had guessed the password effortlessly. It was simply me. He opened the file and stared at the spreadsheet. It was a detailed list of every dollar she had stolen from him. Over 3 years, she had siphoned $200,000 from their joint savings account, labeling the withdrawals as business investments or charity donations. In the next column, she had listed where the money actually went. Dante gambling debts, Dante car lease, Dante clothes. She had been funding my husband's lifestyle with her husband's money, but the financial betrayal was not the worst part. Liam opened the folder containing her audio messages sent to her influencer friends. He clicked on a file dated 2 months ago. I honestly cannot stand him. Ebony's voice filled the room, dripping with contempt. Liam is such a bore. He is so soft, always asking me how my day was, trying to be sweet. It is pathetic. I only married him because he is safe, the architect with the good credit score. But Dante is a real man. He takes what he wants. When I am with Dante, I feel alive. When I am with Liam, I feel like I am babysitting. Liam listened to the recording, his face stone cold. He listened to it again, letting the cruelty sink in, letting it kill the last remaining ember of love he had for her. He didn't cry. He didn't smash the computer. He simply saved the file to a thumb drive. Then he opened a new document and began to type. Petition for divorce. He wrote, typing his own name as the plaintiff and Ebony's as the defendant. He attached the financial records, the audio files, and the video of her and Dante in my bed. He printed the entire stack of evidence. It was thick, heavy like a brick. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. Just 3 words. I am ready. I looked out the window of my office at the city lights below. The stage was set. The actors were in place. Dante and Ebony had their fraudulent contracts. I had the FBI and Liam had the divorce papers. The birthday party was going to be an event that Chicago would never forget. We were all preparing for a celebration, but only one of us knew that when the candles were blown out, the darkness would be permanent for everyone but me. I packed my briefcase, shutting down my computer. The preparation was over. It was time to go to the party. The Sapphire Hall was a monument to excess, a cavernous ballroom dripping with crystal chandeliers and draped in heavy blue velvet that swallowed the light and the sound of the Chicago elite mingling below. Mama Estella had insisted on this venue, claiming it was the only place fitting for a woman of her stature. But I knew the truth. She chose it because it was the most expensive location in the city, and she wanted to prove to her bridge club rivals that the Wilson family was still royalty. The air smelled of expensive lilies and desperation. The room was filled with doctors, politicians, and the upper crust of black society people who judged you by your zip code and the year of your Mercedes. I arrived alone, wearing a black architectural gown that was sharp enough to cut glass. I did not wear diamonds. I did not wear sequins. I looked like a shadow moving through a kaleidoscope of color. I stood by the champagne tower, watching the entrance, waiting for the guests of honor to arrive. They did not disappoint. Dante and Ebony made an entrance that was choreographed to the second. The double doors swung open, and there they were, looking like the cover of a magazine. Dante was wearing a white tuxedo jacket that I knew he had charged to a credit card that was currently maxed out. Ebony was in a gold sequined gown that hugged every curve, a dress she had likely stolen or borrowed from a showroom without intention to return. They walked arm in arm, smiling and waving, playing the role of the benevolent power couple to perfection. The room erupted in applause. People whispered admiringly about how handsome they looked, about how devoted they were. They did not see the incestuous rot beneath the surface. They did not see 2 desperate grifters clinging to each other because they had nowhere else to go. They worked the room like politicians. Dante shook hands, clapping men on the back, laughing that loud, booming laugh that used to charm me but now just sounded like noise. He lied effortlessly, telling people about the big merger he was closing and the new house they were building in the suburbs. Ebony floated from group to group, accepting compliments on her dress and talking about her charity work, implying that the diamonds on her neck were gifts from a doting husband rather than stolen goods from her sister's safe. They treated me like I was invisible. When Dante finally passed me near the bar, he didn't even stop. He just leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear, and whispered, "Do you have the papers, Zola? Make sure you are ready when Mom calls us up. Do not embarrass me." I just took a sip of my sparkling water and watched him walk away, confident that he had bullied me into submission. He thought I was there to sign away my life. He had no idea I was there to end his. The dinner was an agonizing affair of 5 courses and 1,000 lies. I sat at the end of the family table, exiled to the edge, while Dante and Ebony sat on either side of Mama Estella. She beamed at them, holding their hands, feeding off their attention like a vampire. They poured her wine, they fixed her napkin, they played the part of the devoted children perfectly. Finally, the moment arrived. The lights dimmed and a spotlight hit the stage. Mama Estella stood up, tapping her glass with a silver spoon, commanding the attention of the room. She walked to the microphone, the train of her purple gown trailing behind her. She looked out at the crowd, her eyes misty with performative gratitude. "Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight," she began, her voice trembling with emotion. "It is a blessing to reach 60 years of age, surrounded by so much love and success. You know, a mother only wants one thing: to see her children thrive. And tonight, my heart is full, because I look at my family and I see greatness." She gestured dramatically to where Dante and Ebony were sitting. "I want to take a special moment to honor the 2 people who made this night possible: my beautiful daughter, Ebony, and my son, Dante. They have worked so hard. They have been my rock, my joy, and my providers. They spared no expense for this party because they know how to treat their mother like a queen." The room applauded politely. Dante stood up, bowing slightly, soaking in the praise. Ebony wiped a fake tear, dabbing her eyes carefully so she wouldn't smudge her mascara. Mama Estella waited for the applause to die down before delivering the blow she had been saving for me. She looked down the table to where I sat alone in the shadows. "It is a shame," she sighed into the microphone, her voice dripping with passive-aggressive poison. "It is a shame that not all of my children share that same generous spirit. Some people are just cold. Some people are so focused on their little jobs and their own selfishness that they forget where they came from. I won't name names, but we all know who didn't contribute a dime to this celebration. We all know who tried to ruin this night with petty jealousy." The room went silent, heads turned in my direction. I could feel the weight of their judgment. Hundreds of eyes boring into me, wondering why the wealthy accountant daughter was such a miser, wondering why I couldn't be more like my vibrant sister and her successful husband. But Mama Estella wasn't done. "But that is okay," she continued, smiling beatifically, "because I have Dante, and I have Ebony. They are the future of this family. And I am so proud to announce that tonight they have a special surprise for me, a gift that symbolizes their takeover of the family legacy. Come up here, my babies." Dante and Ebony stood up, beaming. They grabbed the folder of legal documents, the ones they had drafted in the motel room, and began to walk toward the stage. They walked with a swagger, a bounce in their step. They thought they were walking up there to accept my surrender. They thought I would follow them. Sheepishly, sign the papers and fade into the background. I stood up. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor echoed in the silent room. I didn't look down. I didn't look ashamed. I picked up the thick, leather-bound folder that had been sitting on my lap all night. It was heavy. It contained bank statements, wire transfer records, text logs, and a copy of the FBI indictment that was currently being processed downtown. I began to walk toward the stage. I didn't rush. I walked with the slow, deliberate rhythm of a predator closing in on wounded prey. My heels clicked against the marble floor, a steady metronome of doom, click, click, click. Dante saw me coming. He frowned slightly, confused by my confidence. He expected a broken woman dragging her feet. He didn't expect the woman in the black dress who walked like she owned the building. He leaned into the microphone, trying to maintain control. "Here comes Zola, folks," he joked nervously, finally deciding to join the party. Better late than never, right, Zola? Do you have the gift for Mom? I reached the stairs. I walked up them, my eyes locked on his. I didn't stop until I was standing center stage, right between him and the podium. I looked at Mama Estella, who was looking at me with disdain, waiting for an apology. I turned to the crowd. The spotlight hit me blinding and hot. I took the microphone from the stand, ignoring Dante's outstretched hand. "Yes," I said, my voice clear and amplified, filling every corner of the Sapphire Hall. "I do have a gift." I slammed the heavy folder down onto the podium with a thud that made the front row jump. "Mom's right." I continued looking at the sea of faces. "I didn't pay for this party. I didn't pay for the champagne you are drinking, or the lobster you just ate." I paused, letting the tension build. But I think it is important for everyone to know who actually did pay for it. Because contrary to what my mother believes, generosity is easy when you are spending stolen money. Dante's smile vanished. He took a step toward me, his eyes wide with panic. "Zola, what are you doing? This isn't the script." "There is no script, Dante," I said, turning to face him, back to the audience, blocking him from the crowd. "Tonight we are doing improv. And I think it is time for the audience to see what is really in the books." I signaled to the tech booth at the back of the room. A young man I had hired earlier that day nodded. The massive projection screen behind us, which had been displaying a slideshow of Mama Estella's life, flickered and changed. It wasn't a photo of my mother. It was a bank statement. Dante froze. The color drained from his face, leaving him looking like a corpse in a tuxedo. And the show began. "You are absolutely right, Mama," I said, my voice booming through the speakers and bouncing off the crystal chandeliers. "I did not write a check for this party. I did not pay for the lobster tail, or the vintage wine, or the silk tablecloths. I refused, because I knew something that you did not. I knew that the money being spent tonight was not profit from a business deal. It was not a bonus from the agency. It was loot from a robbery." Dante lunged for the microphone, his face a mask of panic. "Zola, stop this," he hissed. "You are drunk. You are making a scene." I shoved him back with one hand, a sharp, violent motion that made the crowd gasp. "Sit down, Dante. The audit is not finished." I pointed the remote at the massive screen behind me. The image changed instantly. Gone was the photo of Mama Estella smiling at her 50th birthday. In its place was a high-definition scan of a bank statement. The header was magnified so even the people in the back row could read it clearly. "The Estella Wilson Care Trust." The room went quiet, so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. Mama Estella stood up slowly, her hand clutching her chest, her eyes narrowed, squinting at the screen. She knew that name. She knew that account because I had set it up for her 10 years ago. It was her safety net, her medical fund. The money I had put aside every month to ensure she would never have to worry about health care or housing in her old age. I walked to the edge of the stage, looking down at my mother. "Do you recognize this account, Mama?" I asked softly. "This is the fund I built for you. The one I told you never to touch unless it was a life or death emergency. I gave Dante signatory access last year so he could handle the administrative fees while I was traveling. A mistake I will regret for the rest of my life." I clicked the remote again, highlighting a specific line item in bright red. Date October 12th, withdrawal amount $55,000, recipient Sapphire Hall Events. A murmur rippled through the crowd. People started whispering, pointing at the screen, then at the opulent decorations around them. "You thanked Dante for this party, Mama," I said, my voice rising. "You called him generous. You called him a provider. But he did not pay for this party with his money. He paid for it with yours. He drained your hip replacement fund to buy these flowers. He emptied your long-term care savings to rent this ballroom. He stole 50 years of security to buy 5 hours of applause." Mama Estella looked at Dante. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked around the room at the luxury she had been bragging about, and suddenly it didn't look expensive anymore. It looked like theft. "No," Dante shouted, his voice cracking. "That is a lie. It was a loan. I was going to pay it back." "A loan," I repeated, laughing dryly. "Let us see about that." I clicked the remote again. The screen shifted to another transaction dated 3 days ago. Date, October 15th. Withdrawal amount $25,000. Recipient, Hermes, Paris. I turned to Ebony. She was standing next to Dante, clutching her new orange alligator skin Birkin bag, the one she had been parading around the room all night. She tried to hide it behind her back, but it was too late. The bright orange leather was a beacon of guilt. "That is a beautiful bag, Ebony," I said, stepping closer to her. "You told everyone Dante bought it for you as a thank you gift for organizing the party." And he did, but he didn't use his commission check. He used Mama's heart medication money. The crowd erupted. It wasn't just shock anymore, it was disgust. The wealthy doctors and lawyers in the room knew exactly what a Birkin cost, and they knew exactly what kind of monster stole from an elderly woman to buy one. Ebony shook her head, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "No, that is not true. He told me he closed a deal. He told me it was a bonus. I didn't know." "You didn't know," I snapped. "You didn't ask. You never ask where the money comes from. Ebony, as long as it spends. You wanted the lifestyle so bad. You didn't care who you had to step on to get it." I turned back to Mama Estella. She had collapsed back into her chair. Her face was gray. She looked from the screen to her golden children, the son she adored, the daughter she worshipped. She looked at the expensive bag in Ebony's hand. She looked at the tuxedo Dante was wearing. And then she looked at me. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The daughter she had called cheap, the daughter she had called cold, was the only one who had ever actually protected her. The money she thought Dante earned was actually my money that I had saved for her, and they had stolen it. All of it. "Mama?" Estella let out a wail, a sound of pure heartbreak that echoed through the hall. She grabbed a wineglass from the table and hurled it at Dante. It shattered on the stage, spraying him with red wine. "You thief!" she screamed, her voice raw and broken. "You stole my money. You stole my life. I trusted you. I treated you like a king." Dante held up his hands, backing away. "Mama, please listen. Zola is twisting it. It is just a liquidity issue. I have the assets." "You have nothing," I shouted, cutting him off. "You have absolutely nothing. The trust is empty. Dante, you drained it to zero." I clicked the remote one last time. The final slide appeared. It was a balance sheet for the Estella Wilson Care Trust. The final number at the bottom was 0.00, highlighted in stark, unforgiving black. The crowd was on their feet now. Some were booing, others were filming with their phones. The illusion of the perfect Wilson family had shattered completely, exposing the ugly, rotting core beneath. Mama Estella looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Zola," she whispered, "please tell me this isn't true. Tell me you have a backup." I looked at her. I felt a flicker of pity, but I crushed it. She had made her choice. She had chosen the liars. "I don't have a backup." "Mama," I said quietly, "the money is gone. You wanted a big party? You wanted to show off. Well, enjoy it, because this party cost you your future." I dropped the remote onto the podium. The sound was final, definitive. Dante looked at the crowd, then at me, panic setting in. He realized he had lost the room. He had lost his mother-in-law's protection. And most importantly, he had lost the veil of success he had hidden behind for so long. He wiped the wine from his face, his eyes darting around like a trapped animal. "You think you are so smart, Zola," he sneered, trying to regain control, trying to bully his way out one last time. "But you forgot one thing. I am still the CEO. Even if I owe the trust money, I still own the company. I can make it back." I smiled. It was the smile of the executioner raising the axe. "Oh, Dante," I said, shaking my head. "You really should have read the papers I gave you to sign 5 years ago, and you definitely should have read the one you just signed 5 minutes ago in the green room." "What are you talking about?" he demanded. "I am talking about the end." "Dante," I said, "I am talking about the fact that you don't own a company. You own a crime scene, and the authorities are waiting outside to give you the grand tour." The room was vibrating with the energy of a lynch mob, but Dante was too desperate to feel it. He was drowning in the public humiliation of the charity theft, and like a drowning man, he reached for the only life raft he thought he had left. He grabbed the folder of legal documents, the ones he had drafted in this motel room, and slammed them onto the podium next to the evidence of his crimes. "She is lying!" he screamed, his voice cracking with hysteria, shaking the papers in the air. "Do not listen to her. She is having a mental breakdown. Look at her. She is unstable. Security, grab her. She is trying to ruin the family reputation." He turned to me, his eyes wide and bloodshot, sweat dripping down his face, ruining his expensive stage makeup. "Sign it. Zola," he hissed, shoving the pen into my hand. "Sign. The transfer. You admitted you are overwhelmed. You admitted you can't handle it. Give me the company. Give me Z Holdings, and I will fix this mess. I will pay Mom back. I will smooth everything over. Just sign the paper and go." The crowd went silent, waiting to see what I would do. Ebony was standing behind him, nodding frantically, mouthing the word sign, as if my surrender would somehow magically refill her bank account and save her reputation. Mama Estella was slumped in her chair, too broken to speak, watching the daughter she rejected hold the fate of the family in her hands. I looked at the document. It was titled, "Transfer of Full Ownership and Liability Regarding Z Holdings, LLC." It was exactly what he wanted. It gave him total control. It gave him the assets, the bank accounts, the brand, and the future revenue. He thought it was a golden ticket. I looked at Dante. I saw the greed that had replaced his soul. I saw the arrogance that had blinded him to reality. "You want the company, Dante?" I asked, my voice calm, amplified clearly through the speakers. "You want full ownership. You want to be the man in charge, responsible for every single dollar." "Yes," he shouted, practically vibrating. "I am the CEO. It belongs to me. Sign it." "Okay," I said, shrugging. I uncapped the pen. The sound of the cap clicking off echoed in the hush. I leaned over the podium. I didn't hesitate. I didn't tremble. I signed my name in big, bold letters, right on the line marked Transferor. I dated it and marked the time, 8:45 p.m. "There," I said, capping the pen and sliding the folder back to him. "It is all yours, Dante. Congratulations, you are now the sole owner of Zai Holdings, LLC. Dante grabbed the folder, clutching it to his chest like a holy relic. He let out a laugh, a sound of pure relief and triumph. He turned to the crowd, holding the paper up for them to see. "You see?" he shouted, regaining his swagger. "She knows she is incompetent. She did the right thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I am now in control. The Dante Brooks Agency is back in business, and I promise to make everything right." He looked at me with a smug grin, expecting me to cry, expecting me to run off stage in defeat. But I didn't move. I just stood there smiling, a small, cold smile. I picked up the microphone one last time. "Before you start celebrating, Dante," I said, my voice cutting through his victory lap, "I think you should know exactly what you just acquired." Dante frowned, lowering the paper. "What are you talking about?" I turned back to the screen, clicking the remote again. A new document appeared. Wasn't a bank statement this time. It was a letter from the Internal Revenue Service stamped with a frighteningly large red urgent seal. "You see, Dante," I continued, "Z Holdings, LLC is not just an asset. It is also a liability entity. I set it up that way specifically for high-risk management. And since you never read the financial reports I sent you over the years, you probably missed the memo about the audit." Dante turned to look at the screen, reading the numbers. The blood drained from his face faster than the champagne he had been drinking. "Z Holdings LLC is currently carrying a tax debt of $5 million, I explained cheerfully. "The IRS flagged the company for irregular deductions and undeclared income specifically related to those consulting fees you were paying to yourself. Since I was the owner. Until 30 seconds ago, I was negotiating a settlement proving I was unaware of the fraud. But now I pointed to the paper in his hand. Now you are the owner. Dante, you just signed a document accepting full ownership and liability. That means that $5 million debt is yours personally. The IRS does not care about your excuses. They care about the signature on the deed, and you just volunteered to pay the bill." "No," Dante whispered, shaking his head. "That is not fair. You tricked me." "I am not done," I said, cutting him off. I clicked the remote again. The screen changed to a Department of Justice seal. "Remember those wire transfers from the Cayman Islands, the ones from Lucky 7 Enterprises?" I asked. Dante's knees buckled. He grabbed the podium for support. "Well, it turns out Lucky 7 is under federal investigation for money laundering and racketeering," I said. "The FBI has been building a case against Z Holdings for 6 months. They were looking for the person ultimately responsible for the accounts. They wanted to know who authorized the transfers, who signed the checks, and who benefited from the illegal funds." I took a step closer to him, invading his personal space. "Up until a minute ago, that was a gray area. I was the owner on paper, but you were the operator. It was going to be a messy court battle to prove who was guilty. But you just solved the case for them, Dante. By signing that transfer, by accepting full ownership, you just admitted that Z Holdings is yours. You admitted that the accounts are yours. You admitted that the crime is yours." I gestured to the back of the room. "You wanted to be the boss, Dante. You wanted the credit. You wanted the glory. Well, you got it. You are the CEO of a company that owes the government $5 million and is about to be indicted for a federal felony." Dante looked at the paper in his hand, as if it were burning his skin. He tried to rip it. He tried to tear the signature off. "It is too late," I said, watching him struggle. "This event is being live-streamed. The transfer was witnessed by 300 people. You can't tear up the truth." I leaned in close so only he could hear me, but the microphone caught every syllable. "I am just an employee, Dante. I was fired. Remember, I am unemployed. And now, thanks to you, I am legally innocent. The debt is yours. The prison time is yours, and the shame is yours." Dante dropped the folder. It hit the floor with a flat, heavy sound. He looked out at the audience, but he didn't see admiration anymore. He saw the faces of people who knew he was finished. He saw his mother-in-law weeping. He saw Ebony backing away from him, trying to distance herself from the wreckage. I turned to the crowd, smoothing my dress. "I would like to thank my ex-husband for this generous gift," I said. "I am leaving Z Holdings with a clean slate and a clear conscience." I looked at Dante one last time. "You should probably save that pen," I said. "You are going to need it to sign your plea deal." And then the back doors of the Sapphire Hall burst open, just as I promised. The heavy double doors at the back of the Sapphire Hall did not just open, They burst inward with the force of a battering ram, cutting through the stunned silence of the ballroom. The sound was not the polite applause of high society. It was the synchronized stomp of federal authority. 20 agents in windbreakers emblazoned with those three terrifying letters. FBI swarmed into the room, moving with the precision of a tactical strike team that had been waiting in the wings for exactly this moment. The guests gasped and scrambled back, clutching their pearls and champagne glasses, creating a wide aisle that led directly to the stage where my husband stood, holding the contract that had just sealed his fate. Leading the charge was Special Agent Miller. He did not look at the decorations. He did not look at the buffet, and he certainly did not look at me. He had eyes only for the man in the white tuxedo. Holding the incriminating evidence, Miller marched up the stairs, his boots thudding heavily on the wood. Dante stood frozen, the signed transfer agreement still in his hand, like a shield that had suddenly turned into a target. Dante Brooks. Miller boomed his voice, projecting without a microphone. You are under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, wire fraud, and tax evasion. Dante stumbled back, dropping the folder. No, he stammered. You have the wrong person. It is her company. It is Zola Wilson. She is the one you want. She set me up. Miller stepped forward, kicking the folder open with the toe of his boot, revealing the signature that was barely dry. The ink glistened under the stage lights, damning and undeniable. According to this document, which you just signed in front of 300 witnesses and a live internet audience, you are the sole owner and operator of Z Holdings, Miller said calmly. You just accepted full liability for the $5 million in laundered funds that flowed through your accounts this morning. You have the right to remain silent. Mr. Brooks and I suggest you use it because you have already said enough to put yourself away for 20 years. Miller nodded to his team. Two agents grabbed Dante, twisting his arms behind his back. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was the sweetest music I had ever heard. It was the sound of my freedom. It was the sound of justice. Dante screamed, thrashing against the restraints. Zola, help me. Tell them I didn't know. Tell them it was a mistake. I just watched him, my face a mask of cool indifference. I checked my watch, 9:00 p.m. Right on schedule. While Dante was being read his rights, Ebony decided that family loyalty had an expiration date, and that date was right now. She saw her brother-in-law being dragged away, and she saw the ship sinking. She clutched her stolen Birkin bag to her chest and turned, trying to slip into the crowd, trying to blend in with the guests, who were filming the chaos on their phones. She lowered her head, moving toward the side exit, hoping to disappear into the night, before the consequences could catch her. She made it to the edge of the dance floor, before a shadow blocked her path. It was not a federal agent. It was someone far more personal. Liam stood in front of her wearing a dark suit, his arms crossed over his chest. He did not look like the soft pushover architect she had married. He looked like a wall of granite. Ebony looked up, startled. Liam, baby, she gasped, grabbing his arm. Thank God. We have to go. It is crazy in here. Zola has lost her mind. We need to get home. Liam did not move. He did not blink. He simply looked down at her hand on his sleeve with pure disgust, as if a cockroach had just landed on him. There is no we, Ebony, he said, his voice low and dangerous, and you are not going home. Ebony laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. What are you talking about, Liam? Stop joking. The car is outside. Let us go. Liam reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a thick white envelope and shoved it into her hand against her chest. I am not joking, he said. This is for you. She looked at the envelope, confused. She tore it open, her hands shaking. Inside was a stack of legal papers topped with a petition for divorce and an emergency restraining order. I filed these an hour ago, Liam said coldly. I also submitted the evidence to the family court, the video of you and Dante, the audio recordings of you mocking me, and the digital ledger where you tracked the $200,000 you stole from our daughter's college fund. Ebony's face went pale. She dropped the papers, they scattered on the floor around her designer heels. Liam? No, she whispered, reaching for him again. You can't do this. We are a team. I love you. Do not say that word, Liam snapped, stepping back out of her reach. You do not know what love is. You loved my bank account, you loved the villa, but you despised me. You called me boring, remember? You said you felt like you were babysitting. Ebony flinched, realizing he had heard everything. I changed the locks an hour ago. Liam continued quietly. My security team is at the house right now, packing your things into garbage bags. They will be left on the curb. You are not allowed on the property. You are not allowed near me, and most importantly, you are not allowed within 500 feet of our daughter, until a judge reviews the abuse allegations. Abuse? Ebony shrieked, drawing stares from the few guests who hadn't fled. I never hit her. Financial abuse is abuse, Liam said, cutting her off. You stole her future to buy purses. You are unfit, Ebony. And by the way, I canceled your credit cards. The ones you opened in my name, the ones you opened in your mom's name, all of them. They are dead. Just like this marriage. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper. Good luck out there, Ebony. I hear the shelters are full this time of year. You might want to sell that bag, assuming the FBI doesn't seize it as evidence of a crime. Liam turned his back on her and walked away, walking toward me. He didn't look back as Ebony collapsed onto the floor amidst the divorce papers, screaming his name, screaming for someone, anyone to save her. But there was no one left, except Mama Estella. The matriarch of the Wilson family sat alone at the head table. The guests had fled. The waiters had disappeared. Dante was being hauled out the back door in chains. Ebony was sobbing on the floor, divorced and homeless. The stage was empty, save for me standing in the spotlight, the only one left standing amidst the ruins. I walked down the stairs, slowly descending from the height of my victory to the depths of the wreckage. Mama Estella looked up at me. Her face was gray, aged 10 years, in 10 minutes. Her purple gown looked ridiculous now, a costume for a queen who had lost her kingdom. She trembled, reaching out a hand toward me, her fingers shaking. Zola, she croaked, her voice barely a whisper. Zola, please. I stopped just out of her reach. I looked at her hand, the hand that used to slap me when I didn't smile enough, the hand that accepted my checks, but never held me when I cried. Help me, baby, she pleaded, tears carving tracks through her powder. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. They were stealing from me. I am an old woman, Zola. I have nowhere to go. The trust is empty. The house is gone. What am I going to do? She tried to stand up, but her legs were too weak. She sank onto her knees, grabbing the hem of my black dress, clutching it like a lifeline. Forgive me, Zola, she sobbed. Please, I am your mother. You can't leave me like this. Family sticks together, right? You always said you would take care of me. I looked down at her, feeling a strange detachment. The anger was gone. The hurt was gone. All that was left was clarity. I did take care of you, Mama, I said softly. I took care of you for 10 years. I bought you the house. I paid for the nursing home. I filled the trust. But it wasn't enough, was it? You wanted the flash. You wanted the golden children. Zola, please, she wailed, tightening her grip. I gently reached down and pried her fingers off my dress one by one. I didn't use force. I just used firmness, breaking the contact, severing the bond. You have 2 other children, Mama, I said, stepping back. You spent your whole life telling me how wonderful they were, how vibrant Ebony is, how successful Dante is, but they are criminals, she cried. They have nothing. Then you have nothing. I said simply. I gestured to the empty hall, to the debris of the party, to the ruin of their lives. You made your investment. Mama, I said, turning away. And now you have to live with the returns. You have two wonderful children. Go ask them for help. I am sure Dante can make some calls from prison, and I am sure Ebony has room in her cardboard box. Zola, she screamed, dragging herself across the floor toward me. Zola, do not walk away from me. I am your mother. I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I walked toward the exit where Liam was waiting for me, holding the door open. The sound of her wailing echoed behind me, a ghost story fading into the past. I walked out into the cool night air, taking a deep breath. The air tasted different out here. It tasted like freedom. It tasted like the end of a long, dark winter. And as I walked toward my car, I realized I wasn't just walking away. From my family, I was walking toward myself. The champagne in my crystal flute was cold, crisp, and tasted like absolute victory. I sat in seat 1A of the Swiss Air first-class cabin, watching the bubbles rise to the surface and disappear, just like my problems had done over the last 7 days. The chaos of O'Hare International Airport was just a muted hum outside the thick glass of the fuselage. Inside here, it smelled of expensive leather and fresh orchids, a scent that was vastly different from the smell of desperation that had permeated the Sapphire Hall a week ago. I adjusted my seat, reclining it into a lounge position, and looked out at the tarmac. The gray Chicago sky looked heavy, as if it were holding back a storm, but I didn't care. I was flying toward the sun. I was heading to Zurich to meet with a new client, a tech mogul who appreciated my specific set of skills, and who, unlike my husband, understood that you do not bite the hand that manages your portfolio. The last week had been a blur of legal proceedings and sweet, silent vindication. The fallout from the birthday party had been spectacular. The local tabloids were calling it the Red Wedding of Chicago's Black Elite. Everyone was talking about how the quiet accountant Zola Wilson had dismantled her entire family in under 20 minutes. The FBI had seized the assets of Z Holdings the very next morning, freezing the accounts that Dante thought were his. The agency was shuttered, the cars were repossessed, and the reputation of the Brooks family was pulverized into dust. Mama Estella was currently staying in a state-funded motel on the south side, waiting for a bed to open up in a Medicaid facility. She had called me 40 times in the last 3 days, leaving voicemails that ranged from screaming rage to weeping apologies. I hadn't listened to a single one. Past the first 3 seconds, I simply forwarded them to Liam's divorce lawyer, as evidence of the family's instability. Liam was doing well. He had taken his daughter and moved back to Boston, surrounded by his sane, supportive family. He sent me a photo yesterday of him and his little girl eating ice cream on a park bench, looking happier than I had ever seen him. And Ebony. Well, Ebony was learning that influencer clout does not translate to bail money. She had been named as an accessory to Dante's fraud in the initial indictment. Her brand deals had evaporated overnight. The last I heard, she was trying to sell her clothes on Poshmark to pay for a retainer for a strip mall lawyer. I took a sip of the vintage Krug and closed my eyes, letting the peace wash over me. I felt lighter, physically. Lighter. It was as if I had been carrying 100 pounds of dead weight on my shoulders for 5 years, and I had finally shrugged it off. My phone buzzed on the armrest. It was not a business email. It was not a notification from my bank telling me my net worth had increased again. It was a text message from a blocked number that had managed to route itself through a third-party messaging service used by the Cook County Department of Corrections. I picked up the phone, watching the message scroll across the screen. "Zola, please," it read. The text was frantic, disjointed, typed with the desperation of a man who has realized he is drowning. "It is Dante. I used my commissary money to send this. Bail is set at $200,000. I know you have it. You have millions. Zola, you can't leave me in here. It is dangerous. The guys in here know who I am. They know about the news. I am scared, baby. Please, just pay the bail, and I will sign the divorce papers. I will disappear. I swear. Just get me out." I stared at the screen, looking at the name Dante. A name that used to make my heart race. A name that I had whispered in the dark. Now it was just a collection of letters, a label on a closed file. He was scared. He was begging. He was asking me to use the wealth I had built, the wealth he had mocked, to save him from the consequences of his own greed. I remembered the look on his face in our bedroom. When he asked me what I was going to do, divorce him. He had laughed at me. He had called me broke. He had called me boring. He said I was just a glorified bookkeeper. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I felt a clinical, professional detachment. I typed my reply slowly, savoring every keystroke. "Hello, Dante," I wrote. "I received your request for funding. Unfortunately, after reviewing my portfolio, I find that I do not have any liquid assets available for high-risk liabilities. As you pointed out so eloquently last week, I am just a lowly accountant, and accountants are very careful with their money. I suggest you ask your co-owner Ebony for assistance, or perhaps you can ask the FBI for a payment plan." I hit send. I watched the message deliver, knowing that he was staring at a contraband phone in a cold cell, waiting for a savior who was never coming. Then I tapped the info button. I scrolled down to the bottom of the contact card and pressed block. Caller confirmed. I dropped the phone into my purse and snapped it shut. The final thread was cut. The last echo of the old life was silenced. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, announcing our departure. The engines roared to life, a deep, powerful rumble that shook the frame of the plane, pushing me back into the soft leather seat. We began to taxi, moving faster and faster down the runway. I looked out the window as the ground began to blur. The terminal, the city, the jail where my husband sat, the motel where my mother wept. It all rushed past me, becoming a smear of gray and concrete. And then we lifted off. The sensation of gravity falling away was euphoric. We pierced the heavy cloud layer, breaking through the gray, and suddenly the cabin was flooded with brilliant, blinding sunlight. We were above the storm. We were above the noise. We were untouchable. I looked down at the shrinking city of Chicago. It looked like a circuit board from up here, tiny and insignificant. The penthouse, the agency, the Sapphire Hall. They were just specks in the rearview mirror of my life. I wasn't just a survivor of a toxic family. I was the architect of my own liberation. I had audited my life, and I had removed the bad debt. I had liquidated the liabilities, and now I was operating at a profit. The flight attendant appeared by my side, a warm smile on her face. "Another glass of champagne, Ms. Wilson?" she asked. I smiled back, a genuine smile that reached my eyes. "Yes, please," I said. "And keep the bottle coming. We have a long flight and I have a lot of celebrating to do." I turned back to the window, watching the clouds roll by beneath me like a white ocean. I was Zola Wilson. I was rich. I was free. And for the first time in my life, I was flying solo, and I had never felt more complete. The game was over, and I had won. Zola's victory proves that true power lies in silence and strategy, not noise. The most crucial lesson here is that financial literacy is the ultimate shield against betrayal. We often mistake shared DNA for loyalty, allowing toxic family members to drain us emotionally and financially. But Zola shows us that we must audit our relationships just like a balance sheet. If someone is a liability, cut them off without hesitation. Never let anyone undervalue your contribution or gaslight you into submission. In a world of loud arrogance, be the quiet architect of your own freedom. Ownership is the only law that matters. If you enjoyed watching The Golden Children, get a reality check, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories of justice served cold. Have you ever had to cut off a toxic family member to save yourself? Tell us your story in the comments below.